Good afternoon, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Madison. I am Teresa Holmes, Club President. Thank you all for being with us today. And I love seeing this room filled with wonderful faces of people leading our city. Today's meeting is sponsored by Brian Chan of SuperNet and Laura Gallagher of The Creative Company. Thank you both for your support of today's luncheon. Let's please direct our attention to opening music. Heidi Frankson will be leading us in the singing of You're a Grand Old Flag with Elaine Mitchler on the keyboard. And following that music, our guest will be introduced by Rhonda Adams.
You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you wave. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true, 'neath the red, white, and blue, where there's never a boast or brave. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag.
We have quite a few guests today. I'd like to introduce our guests for today. So as I call your name, please stand and remain standing so we can recognize you as a group. Valerie Rank and Aaron Mullins have invited 5 guests today: David Baer, Steve Hanrahan, Lane Manning, Sean O'Brien, and Ann Rashine. Peter Churchin is a guest of Christy Goforth. Jesse Wren is a guest of Stacy Nemeth, as well as Ben Schmidt, a guest of Stacy. Jason. Dave Bornstein, guest of Susan Schmidt. Jane Wachter, guest of Sarah Anstadt. Janine Wachter, guest of Linda O'Hearn. Jennifer Tasker, guest of Michelle McGrath. And Mike Dillis, the Assistant District Governor from Madison South. Let's give them all a round of applause.
Thank you, Heidi and Rhonda. Be warned, if you attend this meeting, you will be invited to sing. Tim Stadelman chairs this year's Rotary International Foundation campaign, and he has a final update for us.
Thank you, President Teresa. For the past month, we've been up at the podium to talk about the Rotary International Foundation annual campaign, and I'm really excited today to announce that we've exceeded our goal. Together, we raised $53,458. Thank you to the 134 members who have contributed. Gifts of $100 to $500 have been matched with the Paul Harris Fellow Points from Larry Hands and Karen Kendrick Hands, and we appreciate Larry and Karen's generous offer to provide those matching points. Are they here today? As we've shared over the last month, your gifts will fund countless projects in Rotary International's 7 areas of focus, including in Ukraine for those who need help with food, shelter, and much-needed medical supplies. And your gifts will also help fund our new project in Uganda to help curb human trafficking. You still have a chance to participate or increase your contribution, so please send those contributions to the Rotary office. We'll continue to tally those and help with all the things that Rotary International Foundation does. Sometime after July 1st, the Paul Harris recognition will be coming from the Rotary International office, and we'll get that out to you directly. A special thank you to Pat and Jane and Sharon for all the work they do behind the scenes. Once again, thank you very much for your generous support.
And thank you, past President Tim Stottleman, for your leadership in this year's campaign. I am pleased to announce that we have a new member joining our club today. Will Connie Thompson and her sponsor, Neil Fauerbach, please stand? Oh, you're right there. Connie has been loaned the classification of cultural institutions and is executive director for the Monona Terrace Community and Convention Center. We've seen her many times at our luncheons. She grew up in Monroe, Wisconsin, and currently lives in Middleton. Connie holds a bachelor's degree in organizational psychology from Edgewood College and an MBA degree from Alverno College. She's a member of the International Association of Venue Managers and the Society of Human Resource Managers. Connie is co-creator of the Women's Leadership Series, which provides female City of Madison employees tools to develop leadership capacity and to advance in their careers in a more equitable manner. She enjoys running, genealogy, horseback riding, and boating. Rotarians and guests, please join me in welcoming Connie Thompson to our club. Terry Heinrich chairs our Budget and Finance Committee, and he will come up to provide an important announcement. Today is voting day.
Thank you, President Tressa. Hello, everyone. For those of you who've been here 3 weeks in a row, you're tired of seeing me. As Tressa mentioned, I am the chair of this year's Budget and Finance Committee. And the last couple of weeks, we've talked about some of the details of the operating budget. Today is the day we get to remind you it's the day to vote. Approximately 1 o'clock today, exactly 1 o'clock today, there will be an email coming to your inbox. This is for you to vote. This is really important because with the rules in place, we need 2/3 of you to vote. Yes. That's 2/3 voting and 2/3 of you saying yes in order to make this vote happen. The vote today is about the dues increase. So as a reminder, what we're talking about is for the standard members, the dues increase of $20 is being proposed to go from $790 to $810 for the full year. It's a 3% increase. It's also proposing a $10 increase for exempt members, going from $490 to $500. So remember, the vote is today. It's open until Friday. Get it done, because I don't want to come back and have to start this whole process all over again. Just as a reminder, we've talked about meal tickets. That's a separate topic. We're not voting on meal tickets, how they're going to be handled, how they're not going to be handled. So today the vote is about the budget and about the dues being changed. We did talk about the meal tickets from the standpoint that those that were purchased last July are expiring June 30th, so check those tickets out. We asked that they be returned. I think there's going to be more information about that coming out to you, so pay attention to your inbox. So we've got a committee working on that. And then we're also working to streamline the ticket process. This is probably a hassle for each of us, but it's also a hassle for the office in some of the tracking that they do. So be on the lookout for more information to come on that in the coming months. For those that missed it or want it, there is a copy of the budget at the back table. It also is available on the website in the membership only section, so you can see it there in its full glory. If you do have any questions, please reach out to myself, reach out to a board member, reach out to the club office or any officers. We're happy to discuss. If you are not sure about your vote or you want to say no, make sure you send me a why so that we can understand what the issue is. I realize people don't always want to pay more, but if we don't have any feedback, we don't know why there's a no. So like I said, be looking for your inbox for the vote, and then please vote and encourage others to do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. So my Did You Know section today is a bit interactive. And so Terry covered a few things that would have been in my Did You Know, so I'm not going to repeat them again. But my Did You Know for today, of course, is, did you know that we're voting today? That's great. So, and remember, so the changes that we are proposing have been already approved by the bylaws committee, by governance, by the board, and we're hoping that we'll get the two-thirds that we need. So we are doing an electronic membership vote, as Terry said, which requires 2/3 of our membership. So did you know that he was actually right, that if we don't get the 2/3, I will bring him back here next week. And he doesn't want to come back next week. Right, Terry? And did you know that if you don't vote by Friday, that the office will send you more emails? And how many of us like more emails? Right? All right. So if we were in person, we would be able to vote with a majority, but we need the 2/3 vote since we have this approved electronic version of voting process. So be sure to watch your Rotary email this afternoon for your ballot. Please, if you have some feedback, send questions to a board member. Did you know that there are board members in this room? So if you are a current board member, 2012, 2022, 2021 to 22, would you please stand? So after you vote, if you have questions, you can just harass them. Did you know you could do that? All right, and my last did you know is, again, there are copies at the back table of the budget. If you don't understand, you have questions, and you can always log into the membership section of our website. Thank you. All right, Rob Vandenberg co-chairs our Rotary Scholar Mentoring Committee and will come up to provide an announcement as we get ready to welcome the class of our 2022 scholars at next week's luncheon.
Thanks, President Teresa. At next week's luncheon, as Teresa said, we'll celebrate our 2022 Madison Rotary Scholars. And each of these graduating high school seniors will receive scholarships from our foundation ranging from $1,000 to $10,000 per year for the 4 years that they're doing their undergrad studies. Our total allocation this year actually is $97,000. And this will continue for this group of students for 4 years. That's $388,000 invested in to help 26 scholars as they work on their undergrad degrees. We have over 100 Rotary Scholars in college right now. So this new group is coming on board, and we have a set of graduates, about 25 of them, that are finishing and getting their undergraduate degrees. And this can be done because of the foresight of Rotarians who have come before us. So Harry French, former president of our club, established the scholarship program in 1973 with a $500,000 gift from his estate. And other estate gifts were received in the years after that. And then in 2003, Nate Brand, then a 40-year member of our club, started the first Living Donor Fund. And others did so in the years that followed. And we now have 15 named scholarship funds, including current members. And if you're in the audience today, please stand. Regina Milner, Perry Henderson, who established a fund along with his wife, Virginia, who passed away in 2019. I saw Perry somewhere. Yeah. And Marv Levy, along with his family, including member Phil Levy, who passed away last year, and also Dick Goldberg. If we could just give them a hand for their generous support. So then in 2008, our Synergy Scholarship Fund was established, and all Rotarians can contribute to our scholarship program by giving to our Synergy Fund in any amount. When you round up your birthday contribution, that goes to our Synergy Fund. And you can make contributions aside from that. And on your tables today, the blue envelopes, if you wish to make a contribution, that will also go to our Synergy Scholarship Fund. And the gifts you give are cumulative, so you can work your way up over time to a $50,000 requirement to have a named scholarship fund. Our first Synergy Scholarship Award was in 2009, and the value at that time, it reached the $50,000 amount for a named fund. And the Synergy Fund now has a value of $487,000. This year, our Synergy Fund is generating a scholarship amount of $14,400 over 4 years. And just imagine the difference that makes, right, to a student who's trying to work their way through college, and obviously the huge financial burdens that our scholars have. So I'd like you to think of the talent and energy, that's within each scholarship we give. Your gift really counts. Synergy Fund envelopes are on the tables, the blue ones. Be part of our impactful scholarship program. And there is an added incentive. Joan Collins is willing to make a donation of up to $1,200 to match contributions of $150 or more through the end of May. So your gift can make even more impact. And I don't know if Joan's here or not, but she could stand. Is she? Okay. Thank you for that generous offer. And as Teresa said, I hope you'll attend our luncheon next week, June 1st, to meet this year's class of Rotary Scholars. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Rob. He and Cheryl Whittaky, I don't know if she's in the room, they co-chair our scholar mentoring group, and it's been a long and exciting time with that group of young people. So thank you again, Joan. Birthdays. We have birthdays to celebrate with a bit of humor or wisdom that complement our Rotary's mission. We also encourage members to make an age-appropriate gift, as Rob said, to the Madison Rotary Foundation, rounded up to $100 for our club's Synergy Scholarship Fund. Rotarians, if you are in the room when I call your name, please stand. May 22nd, Rob Rokeet. May 23rd, Ashley Quinto Powell. May 24th, Amber France. May 25th, Nancy Young, who shares this quote from Henri Frederic Amiel. Life is short, and we do not have too much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel the way with us. So be swift to love, make haste to be kind. Thank you, Nancy. May 26th, Marv Levy. May 26th, Ellie Schatz. May 26th, Julie Swinson. May 27th, Mark Loftman. May 28th, Sol Blumenfeld. May 28th, another fine for the president. May 28th, Mike Carlson. May 28th, Linda Ketchum, who shares this quote from Reverend William Sloan Coffin: compassion and justice are companions, not choices. Thank you, Linda. May 28th, Rob Ringolson. Thank you to our celebrants for their contributions to the Madison Rotary Foundation. Please join me in wishing them a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. I do have a few members in the news. Rhonda Adams was interviewed on WMTV Channel 15 News about a recent contribution of $97,000 from 100 men of Dane County to the River Food Pantry to feed Madison children. May 20th. Bill Connors was quoted in an article titled "Amid Development Boom, Madison May Change Rules to Approve Rezoning Property," Wisconsin State Journal 523. And Aurelie Estrada was quoted in an article titled "Affordable Dental Care Boosts Services for Uninsured with New Grant," and I think it totaled almost $1 million. Is Aurelie here? It's like $700. There you go, $759,000. Yes, Cap Times, May 18th. Thank you, Rotarians, for all the work you're doing in the community. And now on to our program. which is one of two programs I believe we're going to have another one in September that'll include other Southside leaders who will be talking about Southside development. But for today, we hold our monthly board meeting every month, usually on the first Monday of the month. And so this week or this month, it was in May, on May 2nd. And so I encourage members to actually review the board minutes that we do post on the member login section of our club's website. We want members to see our current board members in person. So once a month, we ask a board member to introduce the speaker. This month, Scott Strong will make the introduction. Scott is Executive Director of Rise, Wisconsin, and he joined our Rotary Club in 2008 and is in his first of a 2-year term on our club board of directors. He will now come and introduce our speaker.
I can always count on Steve. Thank you, President Teresa. Today's speaker is Matt Wachter, who has led the City of Madison's Department of Planning, Community, and Economic Development since 2020. He previously served as the city's Office of Real Estate Services Director. Before joining the City of Madison, Matt worked as a consultant and served on the staff in the office of Congresswoman Tammy Baldwin, working with local governments and businesses on issues including housing, transportation, and economic development. The title of his presentation today is Reshaping the Future of South Madison, and he will provide us with an overview of the recently approved South Madison Plan, as well as an update on public and private projects happening in South Madison. We look forward to your presentation, Matt, and we have made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thank you for speaking to us today. I also wanted to mention that we will have a Q&A with our speaker at the end as time allows, but please wait for the microphone and if you have a question. Let's welcome Matt to our podium. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I also appreciate the clock up here so I can keep track of time. It's a nice touch. As was mentioned, I'm the head of this department that's sort of sprawling. It's planning, community, economic development, zoning, building inspection, as well as our community development authority. So that's a hodgepodge of things that don't necessarily always hang together. But the reason that we're a department is that then when we go ahead and make a plan, we have the tools right there in the same department to go ahead and implement on that plan. And so today I'm going to talk about South Madison Plan in particular. And so this is our sort of study area. It's a wide swath of South Madison. And, you know, you're probably familiar with some of the plans that we do. We have a comprehensive plan that covers the whole city, laying out our future for the next decade or so. And then we have neighborhood plans that really zoom in on a particular neighborhood to lay out really fine grain where sidewalks and parks and things should go. But then sometimes we do a plan that's a special area plan. And it's because we see change coming and we know that we need to get ready as a city to lay the groundwork for how development is going to happen in a space. And that's where the South Madison Plan comes in, because if you just look at what's happening, we've got the Alliant Energy Center. The county has put together a master plan and is moving ahead on that. You've got the town of Madison is dissolving on Halloween of this year. So that's a whole section that's going to be coming into the city that we need to plan for. And then if you just drive up and down South Park Street, you see the march of development coming right down the street. And the goal of this is to get ahead of all of that and lay the groundwork for it. So the last time we did a plan in South Madison was 2005, which seems like a long time ago at this point. So a lot has changed, and so we knew we needed to update that. And we really wanted to get feedback from the people who live in the neighborhood, engage with people to hear what they're concerned about, what they want to see, and try to bake as much of that into the plan as possible. And so really areas of concern here are, you know, the fear of gentrification displacement for the people who are there. There's really a desire to create generational wealth in South Madison. And then really they want to add nice things so that they can thrive. It's not just about, you know, the roads and things like that. It's about adding amenities to South Madison. So when we went out in 2019, pre-COVID, we had extensive community input. And here are the things that we saw that people sort of constantly were bringing up. And again, that fear of gentrification and displacement. They wanted to stay in South Madison and have it be a South Madison for the people who live there today. And that's everything from housing being a really big one, but small businesses and places that have been on South Park Street for generations. Another thing was gathering spaces, places for community to meet. And whether that's a community center or youth programming, senior programming, all of those were things that were constantly brought up. Affordable childcare was another big theme. Even before COVID, we were seeing a lack of childcare in South Madison, and South Madison is full of families. This is a place in our city where we have a lot of families with children, and so really wanted to lean into that. And then our parks infrastructure. Part of this is improving parks, but part of it is also making sure you can get to a park. And so a lot of these other things we heard was that South Madison sometimes exists like a series of islands because it's cut through with Park Street. It's cut through with large institutional things like the Alliant Energy Center. And it's hard to get from one side of the neighborhood to the other. And so we wanted to sort of really capture that people wanted to be able to move through their neighborhood and have better access to bike, pedestrian, and transit options. So these were really common themes that we heard. This was all in 2019, and then COVID hit, and it became really hard to do community outreach, and everything slowed down in our planning process. So this should have been about a year, but really we just passed this plan because things became difficult in COVID to do that quality community outreach that we had committed to doing. But once we restarted, re-engaged with people, a lot of the themes remained the same. And when we distilled it down, it's that anti-displacement and gentrification, community wealth building, and opportunities to thrive were the things that we really were able to peel out of there. And then we have some fairly standard chapters. The plan's available on the website if you want to read it. It's I'll get to the highlights. You don't really need to read it. So from that, one of the things that we really like to do is zoom in on areas of the city where we really think there's going to be change in those neighborhoods. And we identified 3 of them in the South Madison planning area. And these are the places that they're not the single family homes. They're the 1-story building on Park Street. They're the industrial area that's probably not going to be industrial anymore. And so I'll walk through the highlights of each of these, and you can sort of see where we think they're going. So the first one is the Village on Park. So the Village on Park was bought by the city of Madison a little over a decade ago. And we master planned it and we made some serious improvements, but we didn't finish that plan. And so really what's envisioned here and what we heard from the community is that they still want this to be the hub of that community where you can go and get something to eat, where there's community services, there's a library, there's jobs, there's all of those things. So what we envision here is to really take what is now a sea of asphalt and to fill that in with more buildings, densify it, and add structured parking to serve all of that. And then these orange and yellow areas are all the apartment buildings that surround that neighborhood that over time, we still see them being apartments. It's just that whereas today it might be a 2-story apartment building, someday in the future that might be a 4-story apartment building. So gently increasing density over time as this area naturally redevelops. And then the block south of the Village on Park today is a McDonald's, it's the South Transfer Point, but someday in the future that's going to be a large redevelopment site in South Madison. And then Penn Park is really the main park in this neighborhood, and we're looking for opportunities over time to grow that park and add park amenities to serve the neighborhood. The next area is Thorstad, which again is a giant sea of asphalt, which it's not going to be that forever. So here what we really envision is a new neighborhood. So right now there's not housing in this neighborhood. And one of the things that we heard from people was they want to keep single family homes in South Madison, but as we add new 4- or 5-story apartment buildings on South Park Street, add new opportunities for home ownership and affordable home ownership for people. So what we have here is really a mixed use, mixed density neighborhood filled in where Thorstad is today, and then right across those railroad tracks where we have warehouses essentially and all metals recycling. Someday this will be a new neighborhood. And then the third area is really the very south end of Park Street Right now, it's anchored by Madison College, and Madison College made this huge investment in moving their campus to South Madison. And what we really see here is expanding on that, continuing to grow the South Madison campus of Madison College, and then as, again, those one-story warehouses hit the end of their life, replacing it with probably more employment opportunities and additional housing in that area. So this isn't going to happen tomorrow. This is the vision for what's going to happen over 10, 20 years in these neighborhoods. But by laying this out, we've put a roadmap out so when developers, when property owners come in, they sort of know where we want them to go. And I guarantee it's not going to look like this, but this is generally the direction that we see things going. And then on top of all of that, beyond the bricks and mortar, there's a lot of programs that go along with this. So homeownership programs, small business assistance programs, all of those things are recommendations that come out of the plan that form the work plan for the city of Madison, again, for the next decade to come. But when we look at what are we actually doing, we've passed this plan, but we actually have to go do the things that are in the plan. And the first one is we have to deal with the town of Madison coming in. So some of this is evaluating every street, every sewer pipe, every sidewalk, and making sure that we have a plan for how we're going to bring that infrastructure up to our city standards. It's also realizing we're going to be bringing thousands of people into the city of Madison, and we need to get them ready for a larger property tax bill and different garbage pickup and all of those things that come with being part of the city of Madison. So this is a whole engagement process that's happening over the course of the next few months to welcome the new citizens in the city of Madison. So the other thing is, again, we heard transportation. And so the city of Madison has been spending many years now working on improving our bus system, so bus rapid transit going east to west, but also looking at every single bus route in the city of Madison to bring more frequent bus service to people. And one of the results of this is that in the next year or two, South Park Street will start to have 10-minute service all day long to serve people in that corridor. So it'll be a high-frequency transit option to get people where they need to go, to get people to that South Madison campus for Madison College, to get people out to jobs, whatever they need to do. So that's coming. And then to do all these great things that we want to do, we need to create a funding mechanism. So what we're planning to do here is create a new tax incremental financing district, a TIF district here in South Madison. So we're in the process of making that, and we anticipate that that'll be in place for 2023. And this is a tool to really harness new taxes generated by new development for us to reinvest in programs, in infrastructure, in buildings, to see the outcomes that we want to see. I don't know exactly where those boundaries will be, but it'll look something like the planning area that we showed before. And then one of the most powerful tools we have to affect the outcomes of development in an area is we have what's called land banking, where the city or the CDA actually goes in and purchases property so that we can build on it ourselves, so we can turn it over to an affordable housing developer, so that we can maybe take small parcels and put them together to make a bigger development parcel, or maybe buy something really big and break it into digestible chunks. So this was a strategy that we used in the East Washington corridor to facilitate some of those early developments that became Constellation and Galaxy. We bought Don Miller, cleaned it up, and then we brought in developers to do it. We envision doing something similar here. I realize you probably can't see this because the colors were not a great choice. I should have gone with something neon, but we've made a series of investments up and down Park Street over the last couple of years, and really aggressively in the last year or two, buying parcels close to things so we can start to put things together. And then in future years, you'll see us bring in developers, or the CDA might start developing those things, so that as market rate housing comes up and down that street, we can guarantee that there will be affordable housing options that move right along with it. It gives us a bit more control in that realm. Like I said before, the Village on Park, so we went through a master planning process, and what you see here is in the blue in the top left is a new parking structure that we're in the process of designing that will allow us to replace, again, that sea of asphalt with buildings. So if you drive, you're going to see a big construction site on the property right now. Urban League is under construction for the new Black Business Hub. We'll be tearing down the obsolete portion of that building later this summer. And again, making space so that someday in the future, Access Community Health has room to expand on that site. We can add housing. Urban League can fit there. All of those things can start to happen. And then this is what that Black Business Hub is going to look like. So Urban League is under construction. They've got a significant build in front of them, but this will be the new home for Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. It will have a Black Business Incubator. It will have a variety of programs focused on entrepreneurs of color in South Madison. And this is made possible partially by a $5 million grant coming from the ARPA stimulus through the state of Wisconsin, which let them get it across the finish line in record time, by the way. A year ago, they were picking an architect, and today they are under construction. And then right to the south of that, Centro Hispano has been an anchor of this block for a long time in that sort of silver building. They're also looking to create a new headquarters. And again, they were a recipient of those ARPA funds through the state of Wisconsin, which kicked off their fundraising so that hopefully later this year, they'll be under construction on a city-owned parcel that we'll be selling them so they can build that new headquarters. The city of Madison will likely buy their site to combine with the South Transfer Point to, again, create that large new development pad so that we can see affordable housing, market rate housing, mixed use, whatever we decide to do. We have a pad right there ready to go. So this is happening. This site will be a construction site within the next year. And then if you shift slightly to the east, you have the Center for Black Excellence, which you've probably seen in the paper multiple times. This, I think, has now gotten up to be a 65,000 square foot building that is a combination of a cultural center, but also an economic development hub, again, focused on our Black community in South Madison. Also a recipient of those state funds, which, again, are sort of facilitating it happening. So a lot of funds flowing into all these projects, making them a reality in a really short amount of time. So if you sort of map all the things that are happening today, it's a lot, and it's a lot of change happening all at one time. But I think all of this change is very responsive to what we heard from the community. People want economic development opportunities, housing opportunities, all of those things. And the partners that we have are partners who have been in South Madison for a very long time doing these projects. And then if we sort of zoom out a little bit from that kind of artificial planning area, look at all the other things that are happening in South Madison, there's a lot of other interesting things. So Alliant Energy Center, they did this master planning project to create a destination district looking at additional concert venues, sports venues, hotels, all of these things. So I think we're going to hear more about this, in the months and years to come. But a very exciting project. Again, getting rid of that sea of asphalt and filling it in with a bunch of exciting new projects. We're going to call this the gateway to South Madison from downtown. So in the Regent Street corridor, we've seen a lot of activity recently. We've created a new TIF district. There's a construction site that's Bayview, but there's a bunch of other projects that have been recently approved in this Regent Street corridor. And so Bayview being, I think, one of the most exciting. So we're replacing 105 units of aging affordable housing with really sustainable, green housing that has had a wonderful engagement process with residents. And this is really the result of what the residents wanted to see happen at their home. And so this is under construction and will be completed in the next couple of years. And then I actually erased a slide on accident. So the slide you're supposed to be seeing is right next to right next to Bayview is the CDA owns 350 units of affordable public housing right next door, and we've now engaged in a master planning project to rebuild, replace, renovate all of that housing right there to be, again, sort of modern, state-of-the-art, green, affordable housing right there on bus rapid transit, walking distance to downtown. Really exciting project. So have me back in 2 years and I'll be able to show you a bunch of pictures of what that's going to be and how that's going to look. If we start walking down Park Street, we have Truman Olson. So this was a site that the city land banked a decade ago. Took us a while to figure out what we wanted to do, but at the end of the day, we've built a new street, Cedar Street right there, and under construction is this apartment building that's 150 units of affordable housing that'll also hold a new grocery store in the first floor of the building as the Cops grocery store will go away in the future. And then what's next? So these are just the projects, and this is probably not an exhaustive list. There's probably a lot of things I don't know that are in the works in South Park Street. But like I said before, there's also programs that go along with this. So we're looking at ways to expand our homeownership opportunities, to expand opportunities for small businesses that are in South Madison to buy a building, to grow, to expand, all of those things. So as that TIF district comes into play, as we sort of retool these programs over the course of the next year or two, we'll start to see those launch to really focus on, again, those ideas of avoiding gentrification, displacement, to make opportunities for the people who live in South Madison to stay there and to thrive. So I did that in 20 minutes so that we had plenty of time for questions.
Hi, Matt. Good to see you. I'm not going to ask you a TIF question. Okay. Could you explain, please, to the group? I know you used the word affordable housing, and that encompasses lots of different lineage. Could you explain affordable housing and what kind of housing you're talking about here today?
Yeah. No, right. Affordable housing is a really broad term. So when the city of Madison is talking about affordable housing, what we're typically talking about is housing for households that make 60% of our median income or less. But one of the things we heard is people want housing that they can afford, but they also want a variety of housing. So that could be home ownership opportunities for people. It could be rental housing. It could be housing with services for people who need that. And so we have programs that sort of take each of those slices and work on them. But a lot of the affordable housing developments that we build actually have a mix of incomes. They've got some people at 30% of median income, 50, 60, all the way up to market rate, and those all exist within a building. And a lot of how that actually shakes out ends up depending on how we put money together. A lot of it is following federal funding programs, state funding programs, but we're really trying to, more often than not, get a mix of housing in there that is affordable to a wide variety of people.
Here, you talk about paying for this with TIF money, and my understanding is that can only pay for public improvements, not private, and it has a time limit. How do those restrictions implement what you can do and when?
Sure. So the most straightforward way to use TIF is to do a public infrastructure type project, and some of that is what's going to happen, paying for bike path connections and all of those sorts of things. The other thing that we can do is that we can fund a developer who, but for us investing in that project, it wouldn't make sense economically to do. We can also use TIF to do the land banking where we buy the property to do it. So we can use it in a variety of ways. And the other thing that we do is that we create these TIF districts, and they collect a bunch of new tax increment. Eventually we close that district, but we can use money from that to pay directly for affordable housing. So that's actually the most common, that's our biggest source of funding for affordable housing, is that we capture tax increments from, say, downtown development happening, and when that's done, we take millions of dollars and we push it into affordable housing. So it's not exactly TIF, but it comes from TIF. That's a confusing answer, so we could talk about this for an hour if you want.
Matt, we're over here.
I have a question. A couple of the slides had, you showed where the train tracks were, and none of your plans incorporate off-street transportation, and I was wondering if you've taken the rail into consideration.
So That's a good question. I don't know the exact answer to how we've looked at rail. What we have done is we've proposed additional crossings of rail. So a lot of emphasis on bike and ped, but if you're talking about actually using passenger rail on that rail line, I don't think we looked at that as part of these planning processes, but I can double check on that.
Matt, over here. Sorry. If I recall correctly, the move of MATC to South Madison was not in place of the 2005 plan. How has that move materially affected anything in the planning process? And what spillover effect have you seen in terms of retail or housing from that move?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think one of the things that it did is it sort of, the idea that Madison College is going to possibly expand there means that it's more of an institutional campus type feel in that immediate area. But I mean, we've had a series of conversations with Madison College over the last couple of years of really what do they need to thrive there. Some of it is, they say, parking, but it's also additional housing opportunities, food, all those things. It's a built-in base of customers for that future development that happens. We're on the Central Block, on the Village on Park. And so we've been in conversation with them, how can we have those joint things? Another big thing is their student base are also a driver of additional need for childcare. And so that's a conversation that we've been having really intensely right now, is how do we work with Madison College on childcare options in South Madison, which I don't know that would be part of the conversation if it wasn't for that move.
Alder Clear. Former, thank you very much. Great to see you, Matt. We all sort of giggled when you mentioned property taxes for former Town of Madison folks. But could you talk about the implications of bringing in areas that for 50 plus years there's been a serious disinvestment in infrastructure and especially in housing stock?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the issue of property taxes, it's not like people are going to see a giant jump like tomorrow. We're working with people on that. We're also making sure that there are programs in place to help homeowners, especially with property tax burden as they come into the city. Also, one of the things is that these places will be now subject to our building inspection requirements, which again, there's not going to be some sort of massive, amount of stuff, but it is going to be different. And the truth is, City of Madison building inspection is going to be more on top of things. And so putting in place programs so that people who are, homeowners have low interest loans available to make code required repairs. All of those things are things that we are working and talking to people about. But it is a change, water, sewer, garbage pickup, taxes, all those things will change over time for people. And we hope to have a smooth transition with assistance programs in place to help people when needed.
Matt, at the edge of the South Madison Plan is a very exciting new development that runs all the way from Machinery Row to Olin Park, the John Olin Waterfront Plan. I'd be interested in your thoughts on how that redevelopment plan is related to the South Madison Plan.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we have a handful of overlapping plans happening in South Madison. So there's the South Madison Plan. There's the actual destination district plan for Alliant Energy Center. There's another plan that is really about the connections between these pieces. And then there's the park plan. Because one of the things that I think throughout all of this is we want to make sure that if you are, if you live in South Madison, maybe on the west side of Park Street, that you can get to that waterfront and get on a bike path to get across there. So a lot of the plan that is about the connections really does focus on how do you get some better east-west movements in there, because again, Park Street and Fish Hatchery want to get you north and south, and there's not a lot that tries to get you east to west. And even really simple things that we heard, in that plan for the Village on Park is an extension of a street right through there. It's this little stub of a street. But what it does is it gets you from Lincoln Elementary to a stoplight to get across Park Street for the kids who live, right across the street from there. So there's really fine grain recommendations that are in there to make all these little tiny connections a lot easier so people can get to that waterfront, can get to school, all of those things.
Over here.
In your last slide, you showed a apartment building, affordable housing with a grocery store, which I was really excited to see. How has addressing our issue of food deserts in Madison in general worked into your planning process?
Yeah, I mean, that's, so wearing my CDA hat, I'm the landlord for like 3 grocery stores on Park Street, and they're all in flux, right? This is a sort of a very dynamic part of the economy is how grocery works and what size grocery store and how do different ethnic grocery stores interact or compete or not compete with each other. So luckily I have an expert on staff who is our food policy person who has been doing a lot of outreach with those grocery stores to see what they need. And one of the programs that the city created is called Healthy Retail Access Program. And it's, it gives $50,000, $100,000 of startup funds for usually a small first-time grocer to convert a space, to do equipment upgrades, all of those sorts of things. So one of the things we're looking at is with the smaller groceries on Park Street, making sure they have access to those programs to do modernization. But I mean, the truth is we have a grocery store at the Village on Park, and right now they're next to a giant construction site, and it's disruptive. And so part of this is just communicating a lot with those tenants and making sure that they have, the signage and the access they need to make sure customers can, get there throughout all of this. This is a transition. All this construction is disruptive, and so making sure we communicate with people and work with them is the other piece of it.
Now we've gone over here. I know buildings last a long time and they use a lot of energy across time. I was wondering what the city of Madison can do, and especially in this area, to counter the weak building codes that we have for energy in Wisconsin and encourage contractors to do things right the first time instead of doing things right much later at more expensively.
Yeah, I mean, you have a great point. We have a no stick in our toolbox on this. We can't affect code to just tell people you have to do XYZ energy efficiency. So things that we can do are things related to the zoning code, things related to like stormwater requirements, which is we have much stricter stormwater requirements than we did just a few years ago. But on actual energy code, the state does not allow us to do that. It is an all carrot sort of approach to things. And I'll be honest, right now, it's been a lot of encouragement, but not a lot of substance behind really incentivizing it. And that is an area that I think we do need to look at in the future. It's probably not a very satisfying answer, but it's the truth.
Thank you for your talk. I have a question about green things. I notice a lot of high-density housing. I notice a lot of removing parking spaces. What are you going to do for trees? Trees are good for people. Trees are good for air. Trees are good for shade and make people happy. And sometimes the buildings in Madison are getting a little closer to the streets in order to make the density higher and make them more profitable. Please make room for trees.
Yeah, so on South Park Street in particular, as buildings redevelop, that is one of the pieces, is pushing back, expanding right-of-way so that there's a better pedestrian experience. Those sidewalks get wider, it's easier to walk on the sidewalk, but also saving room for street trees. So it's going to be kind of piece by piece as we go. It won't be, all of Park Street gets demolished and we add a 10-foot terrace. But as things redevelop, I think you can anticipate wider terraces with more room for street trees on them. And then part of the Village on Park redevelopment is when we put back new parking stalls is adding, as part of a stormwater plan, infiltration basins with trees, shading, all of those pieces are part of the redevelopment. But it's going to happen slowly over time.
Oh. Thanks, Matt. You mentioned a couple of times about programs for small businesses. Can you elaborate a little bit on what those programs are and if they're currently active, and if not, when they will be available for those small businesses?
Yep. So right after COVID, we launched what's called Small Business Equity and Recovery Program, which is really a series of small programs under one banner. One of them being the pop-up shops that you see on State Street right now. I'm blanking on something collective. I can't remember the first word of it. But the idea is that the city will lease a space and then sublease at below market rates to small startup businesses with the idea that they'd be there for 6 months, and then hopefully we'd help them graduate on to having their own full retail or office space. So we did this on State Street over the last year or so. We're looking right now at South Park Street as where can we do other things to create those really early stage spaces for people. Another one is the Commercial Ownership Assistance Program. So the idea being that if you've been a tenant and have an established business and you're historically disadvantaged business owner, that we would then bring in a subsidy to help sort of fill your gap for you to go ahead and buy your building. There's also a tenant improvement program that we're planning to launch. So if you're a startup and you need to buy a bunch of shelving or things like that to outfit your space to do tenant improvements, that we would help sort of fill some of that gap. So those are just a handful of the programs that exist in there. Early in COVID, a lot of our assistance was, we're just going to get you some money so you can buy PPE for your business, or you had to shut down because you're a restaurant, or you cut hair or something like that, and you just need to bridge that gap in your rent for 2 months till things. So that was what we did in the beginning. Now we're looking more at sort of those longer term growth to get really early stage businesses to the next step, established businesses into building ownership, that kind of thing. And then timing wise, those exist today, but they're kind of funded citywide. And the idea would be we can do an enhanced version, enhanced marketing, all of those things in target areas like South Madison.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, everybody, for all those great questions. They were fantastic. My name is Paul. I'm just jumping in for Teresa. She needed to leave. She had another appointment, so I'm just filling in for her. It made me wonder, what happens if I don't ring the bell? Do we still have conversations, connections happening? How long do you guys have? What do we say? But otherwise, stick around, spend some time. It's been really great to see everybody here and see everybody's faces, and appreciate all the conversations. And with that, we're adjourned.